everyone, welcome back to 30 Cal Outdoors. I'm Bo Hunter, and on this episode we're going to talk about the basic fire starting skills. I'm going to show you from start to finish. Following this episode we'll get into a little bit more trickier stuff, using flint sticks, using stuff around the forest here to try and make your tinder base. But this is just to give you the skills needed to start a campfire with perfect conditions. Okay, so I'm going to go, I picked this tree here. The reason that I say that is because I don't like to cut all the way through and hit the ground. It dulls up the blade even faster. So this one here, it's already it's a fallen tree, and it's hard for me to roll to do the half cuts, that sort of thing. So I want to be able to make a cut all the way through without damaging my blade. So this here, we got a bit of a gap. The overhang is weighted here, so I know how to make my cuts, and I'm going to cut this up, and then we'll go from there. Now, the forest is beautiful. We like to use it. We want to respect it. Not only does it not burn very good, but we don't need to cut down green trees to get firewood. And green tree is a live tree, okay? So this one here has been here a long time. It's dead, and it's going to be drier, providing how long it's been here, how much rain we've had. But this is my best case scenario, right? So that being said, I like to cut my blocks up between 12 to 16 inches long. That's how my grandfather taught me. I think that generally had to do with the size of the stove we were putting wood into. I like to do it, I guess because I was taught that way and it's just always in my blood that way. But some things to note, that you have to cut through this with an axe. So if you start cutting your wood this big and it's got a lot of knots and twists in this structure, it's going to be very difficult to cut up, and you probably want to make this as easy as possible, depending on the type of axe you have and how much you want to swing at it. So those are some fun tips, and yeah, I'm going to go ahead and truck that back to camp, and we'll get fire started. Now, to start a campfire, right, you want to start by building a base. This one here has already been built for me, so that's awesome. It's going to be my designated fire spot. But when you're building a base, you always want to keep in mind where you're putting the base, and you want to also make sure that you steer clear of like a root system, because you can actually start an underground fire, believe it or not. Providing the materials you have around you, dirt base, put rocks on the bottom and then put your rocks around it, that sort of thing. Just always be mindful of how you're building your fire, because you don't want to end up starting a forest fire when you're building a campfire. You also want to make sure that there's no trees above you, like some sparks can ignite it, or flames can touch it. So first off, you're going to need your wood, and we already went in the bush and we got some wood. And like I said, we're going to use paper. I don't have any paper towel or anything on me, so I'm just going to use this booklet that I had in my pack. And so I'm going to go ahead and chop up that wood, and then we'll talk about the different sizes and starting points, okay? So to cut your wood, you're going to need an axe, and you're going to need a chopping block. It provides a nice solid surface for chopping the wood on, and it keeps your blade out of the dirt. You don't want to put that blade in the dirt too many times, because you'll end up chipping it on the rocks and the debris on the ground, and you won't have a sharp axe anymore. Cut your firewood. You're just going to put your log here. So you can see I got all my wood chopped up, at least in the beginner stage here. While you're chopping up your wood, you want to keep note of which ones were more knotty and which ones were pretty straight cut through, because the ones that were pretty straight cut through, you're going to want to take them now, and what we got to do is we got to build sizes. So we're going to have some big stuff, and that's for your longer burning life after the fire gets going, and then you're going to want some smaller stuff, kind of middle, and then you're going to want some really small stuff, which we're going to call tinder, and that is the technical name for it, but it's very small, very fine. Now the wetter it is, the smaller and finer you have to get your fire going. So we're going to try with a pretty standard size right now, and we'll see how it goes. I'm just cutting up in my tinder now. That's our fire pile, our firewood. That's going to be our maintain the fire. So to start, you'll see from right to left, okay, what you got to do to start a fire. Right here, I'm going to use paper. Some paper burns better than other paper. Newspaper burns really well. A paper towel burns really well. And then I got my little shavings here, right? So they're very, very thin. Now, they're gonna go on top of this, and then I'm gonna follow with this in a TP fashion. At this point, you wanna make sure that these are catching, but your TP is gonna be on already. And you just maintain this, and as long as that's catching, and it's gonna climb up, start to catch this wood on fire. As this is catching on fire, you know your base is started. You know you're good to go. And now you got to maintain the fire, so you're gonna have to add to it. You start with this little bit bigger wood. I don't know, it's about an inch thick, right? And then as that gets going, you can start adding this stuff. Now, once you get to say this point or this point, I like to switch my burning style from a TP to a waffle, I call it, and that's where you cross hatch it like this. So you're gonna cross hatch it like this, okay? And that burns really well. Allows enough air in, and I mean, you can stick sticks through here if you want, but you build this system up after, and it works really, really well. And then you gradually get bigger, right? And then you work yourself into some pretty good sized logs, and then you can move over to those. And those will be your continuous maintain your fire for the night. So when building a fire, it's good practice to kind of have all the things you want right kind of near you. So I'm just going to gather all this stuff up. Building a fire is super fun. It requires full attention because it can go out at any minute, and depending on how bad you need that fire going, like if you're in a survival situation or something like that, you want to make sure it's going, right? So you're going to have to manipulate things sometimes. I mean, it's not 100% perfect all the time. Now, when we get to lighting this, okay, the proper way to light this is you don't just light it and throw it in, right? So you're going to want to light it, and then you're going to want to tilt it up like this, and that's going to allow the flame to build up around that, but not to the point where you burn your fingers. I mean, don't be afraid and throw it in the fire. Just tilt it up enough so that it kind of catches the rest here, and then you're going to place it down. And then once you see that it starts to take off, you're going to want to start adding your smaller stuff to it and making sure that it's catching. That's what I mean by maintaining it, right? You want to make sure that every step you do, it's catching, right? You can't just go from that to the big logs, it won't catch. In order for a fire to happen, you need to gradually grow from a flame bigger and bigger and bigger, and it produces more heat and more heat and more heat. And essentially, the more heat you have, in theory, if this whole thing was covered in coals and it was super hot, you could burn something that was super wet, super saturated with water, because it's going to dry it out so quick. It's just going to evaporate all that water, and it's going to burn. Now, some other things to note too. You'll see me doing this. I'm not going to talk about when I'm starting the fire, because I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'll probably maybe fast forward through it. I don't know. But I like to, in my experience, this side of the wood burns best. The bark holds moisture, and the part that actually burns, the part that really grabs the fire, is the dry side, or the exposed wood. So that's why I'm going to show you this. All the wood I have is exposed wood. Okay, and that's the part that I'm going to be laying on the fire. Now, whatever you're doing with your tinder, you don't just light it and expect it's going to start a fire. You might have to have some more paper lying around, or whatever you're using, to keep adding to it to go, right? Because until this base wood starts, you don't have a fire. All you have is burning paper. So right now at this point, I'm just going to continue maintaining the fire. I had to pause the video for a sec there. I had to go get some of this stuff out of the bush, some dried up wood, just some small stuff to add to it. It's a little bit drier than the stuff that I'm using, so I got to keep working at it like I was saying. But the fire is going, and that's how you start a basic fire. Thank you for watching. Again, this is 30 Cal Outdoors. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and please check out my other videos. If you have any ideas of any suggestions on videos you'd like to see about survival and being out in the outdoors, or you want me to do a product review or something, send me an email, send me a text or something, and let me know. Thank you.